Hi guys and welcome to Hack Explorer. On today's episode, we'll be using one of our previous labs to conduct an attack and a detection scenario. So on the first half of the video, your role will be as an attacker to attack into the lab setup, and in the second half, we'll be working as an analyst to detect the attack type and the artifact. So there's a lot of learning coming up and hope you'll enjoy.
Guys, and welcome to our first attack and detection scenario. So in this scenario, we'll be actually seeing how to conduct a FTP attack, and in the meanwhile, the main part will be how to detect it from as a security analyst would do. So we'll be looking at both sides. So I chose FTP because it's one of the most simple protocols and easy to understand. And the basics that we'll be learning here will be like continuing and building on top of those things to continue our advanced setups. So if you're new for this channel, I have already talked about how to build this lab setup that I'm working on. So if I give you a small recap, this is the home detection lab, which is built on Oracle VirtualBox, and we have three boxes separately. A Windows box, which will be the victim running the vulnerable services. In this case, it will be running a FTP server, and the attacker. I will trying a brute force attack. Again, it's very simple and it's very fast to organize and it's very easy to understand. And the main thing is we are going to see how IDS would detect it and what type of steps we can do additionally into detecting this thing. So this laptop, I'll put the link above. You can see a card over there. So you click on that one, build this lab if you're not familiar. And if you want to continue, you can still continue because we'll be looking at how to use all the tools. Okay, so let me go into lab configuration. So this will be the graphical thing, and we have a Windows XP running. You can run in any Windows version. So I choose Windows XP because it's low on the hardware configuration. And this lab setup is, remember, you can run on a low hardware configuration. That was one of my main goal. For example, this particular NIDS, which is actually a security onion, I'm running on 8 GB of RAM, and Windows box, this Windows XP will be taking about 256 RAM and Kali minimum of 2 GB. So gather all around. So if you can give the amount of that memory, in the future we'll be adding some more stuff for this and making this network complex, but this will be a good start for all of you who are coming into this field, right? So again, Windows XP running 156. In order to run the FTP service, I have used software called XAMPP, that is Apache, MySQL, PHP and Perl combined into one package. This is actually to run a web server, but in the server we get the FileZilla server also. So whatever the version that you run, there'll be XAMPP version. It's very simple. You just have to install it, double click install, and once you are done, you can just have to click on the start icon. So if I want to start the MySQL service, you just have to click the start. So the service is started and it will show on what ports it is running for. Okay, so it's that simple. So I'm running a MySQL server over here. I'm sorry, FTP server, and I'm running my Kali Linux box. I'm going to show you. I think I'm running the latest version, which I don't know. Yeah, Kali Linux 5.4, and this is the security onion. So as I go, I'll explain what is going to happen. So if you're starting this one, let me show you the process of creating a user account for this one. So if you want to configure your FTP settings, go to admin and just click OK. So this will give you the FileZilla server interface. We no longer need that interface that we had over there earlier. If you want to create a user account, let me create another folder. So something like I'll actually create another folder called, let's make it detail FTP share. Doesn't matter, you can give any name here, and I'll actually create another account called, and yep, I'll remove it. I'm going to add a user, call him admin again. Okay, and you can give the password. So I'm going to give a password. I'm not going to show you the password, so I'm just going to give a simple password, and I'm going to make sure this user has some shared folder. So once this is selected, I just selected FTP share for this folder. Okay, and for this user, I'm going to give read and delete and access and click OK. Right. So we have created a user and a password, and he has some shared folders that he can access. I think here you can see he can do almost everything. Just even make he can create delete almost everything, admin user. Okay, so let's see the normal scenario, how a user will access and what we'll be seeing. So meanwhile, since we are concentrating on monitoring also, I'm going to turn on the packet sniffing. When you have packet sniffing, as I told you, you can see all the things that are happening on the network. So in order to view those things, you can actually use the tcp dump command. So I have talked about this one also. So I'm actually using tcp dump, and this machine have a lot of interfaces. I have configured this as the sniffing interface. Remember, whatever the traffic that is coming into the network, for example, in this we are actually sending all the traffic into this one. So this network interface is in special mode promiscuous, where it will listen to all the stuff. If it's a real network, you might have to use something like a port mirroring or a span port, where you can send all the traffic into this machine. Okay, but remember, this should be able to accept all the traffics. That's why we use in promiscuous mode. So in my case, this interface is ENP0S3. So I'm going to say, okay, buddy, listen to all the traffic that is going on here. Okay. Yep, I have to type my password also. This is just a small thing at the side to see what's happening on the network as we do the things on the left. Okay, right. So you can see some things are going on. We can see some extra traffic. Okay, now I'll show you, like, don't get distracted from that one. We will just test our FTP server connectivity. A normal administrator will use the FTP command. I'm actually want to see my IP address also. So I'm going to connect to FTP 192.168.56.106. Type quit. Yes. So again, I missed a dot over here. Just press enter. In the logging window, you can see the FTP activity, and we also had some FTP activity going on here also. So it's asking my username. I'll type my username and my password, whatever the password that I typed. Okay, so successfully, you can see we can log on to the server. Just do this test before you do the attack. Now I can actually type dir. I think there's nothing inside. Type mkdir test. Yes, directly created successfully. So you can see there's a directory over there. So I'll type quit. Yep, and I am out of the directory and I'm disconnected over here. Here actually you saw the FTP data that is going on. You might sometimes be able to see the passwords also. Now you can see all the traffic are captured by this machine, and you can actually see the things that are going on. Well, another thing is actually you can make sure your port is set to FTP, so you can only see whatever the FTP activity. Let me check that one again. So if I type FTP activity, you can see only this one. I'll actually give verbose and or ASCII traffic. So this will actually show you whatever the text that is going on, whatever the password, if you can see, because FTP is a clear text protocol, right? So you might be able to see this one. Right. So now actually we are going to the attack. So we just logged in as admin and we just checked our setup is working. Now a attacker who doesn't know this password, he might do a password guessing or a password brute force. Like, so we'll be assuming that this person is using a weak password, and just a demonstration purpose, we are going to see how to attack this one. So I'm going to use I can actually clear this account. I think so. Clear all, and just to make sure this is a clean state, and we are actually monitoring FTP traffic here, so nothing's happening in FTP activity. You can see. Remember the secret onion, we have some other tools. Once we complete the attack, we'll go one by one. Before anything, this attacker might want to know what are the services running in this computer. So the main thing is, before a FTP attack or before an actual attack on a protocol, we might be able to see some scanning activity. So probe and scan and an attacks on a specific port. So to do a probe and scan, we can use nmap. Okay, nmap, and we want to see the service versions. Okay, and some scripts that are running. I'll just make it simple service versions of whatever the service that are found. So nmap will scan 1 to 1000 ports initially, and I'm going to specify the IP of my victim machine. So 192.168.56.106. Okay, right. So we can see a scan is running on the background. We don't see any traffic related to FTP yet. If I have the verbose option, I would have able to see these kind of things going in the background. Okay, there was some FTP. So it actually hit the FTP activity. I think FTP server actually gave us a header back. So that's what we see over here. So you can see actually our nmap scan ran, and it is showing actually what are the ports that are open. So we know FTP port is open and the versions and everything over here. At this time, normally you won't be having a TCP dump open all the time, but you might get an alert from your NIDS. Security Onion is actually running Snort in the background. So if I open Squill, that will be a graphical user interface for Snort. So I'll go to admin and my password over there. So this will be the IDS, NIDS actually, Network Intrusion Detection System, which is showing our alert. You have two options, our interface and another thing called OSSEC, which is a host-based IDS device. I'm not going to say this one because I'm going to only monitor network. Okay, right. So we have some alerts already. So here you can see a lot of scan activity. Where the scan activity initiated from 101 and 106. So this could be a good indicator as an analyst that somebody is trying to scan the network. Okay, so at this point you can see attack actually ran a scan and you have a corresponding alerts for this one. Snort is sniffing the network, and based on its signatures it detected like, okay, this should be some suspicious activity. Okay, right. So while this is open, what we'll do is we'll run another actual attack on this one. So we don't know the password. Let's assume we don't know the password and we want to attack here. So for this one, what I am actually done is I am running, just let me show you. So I have a folder called FTP. I have created two word lists. So this will be kind of a attack like a dictionary attack where we have a list of passphrases and we are going to try one by one. So sometimes you might know the username or sometimes you might also guess it. So for example, in this case, if you look at the users.txt, so you can see there are three users, root, admin, and administrator. So I'm going to try all three users. And there's another pass. So for example, cat pass. Okay, so I have a bunch of weak passwords. So one of these things is my password. Okay, we don't know what is the password is. So let's give it a try and see whether our tool will be successful to identify this activity. So I'm going to use the tool called Hydra. And Hydra actually, you need to give two parameters. For example, you can give the list of users that we have. So for example, we have users.txt and the list of passwords. If you have a single list of users, you have to give simple L and admin without the earlier part that we had here. But since we are giving randomly, we assume we don't know the exact user, so can give multiple users also. And actually here what we are going to do is I'm going to say pass.txt, and finally I'm going to say I'm going to hack the FTP protocol. This is very important. You have to mention the protocol because Hydra supports multiple protocols, and the IP address 192.168.56.106, and I'm going to make it verbose so I can see what's the output is happening. Otherwise, the tool will be like stuck. You won't be able to see anything. So very basic attack. The idea is just to get an idea of what type of tools will be triggering and what type of activity we are seeing. So very noisy. Okay, let me run the scan and we see what's happening. Okay, so I'm just going to minimize this one since we already have it. Okay, so it's having some technical issues. Oh, and you can see there's a lot of cannot connect options, and it's running some scans. Okay, so it ran multiple connections. If you come here, actually, can you see any of the commands that you have? Yep, and you can see because it was a lot actually. We had 3 usernames and about 10 passwords. So like multiply them, and each username it will try 10 passwords. So about 30 attempts running parallelly. But finally, you can see it found the password. Okay, so this is the password and the username that we have over here, right? So if you go to our Squill, sorted by time, so we might be able to see some activity. Okay, so what I want to show you is actually these 3 events. If I expand this thing, you can see our brute force activity is actually recorded over here. There's a FTP administrator login attempt, FTP root login attempt, and FTP brute force login attempt. So as an analyst, what happens is he will be actually monitoring the IDS events. And what are these IDS events will actually tell a story. Actually, all the malicious activities happening from 101. Over here, we have a brute force attempts coming from 101, and again another brute for root admin coming from 101. So this is one of the places that you can see all your activity. That's why your IDS is very important in capturing the attacks. What more can you get from your IDS attacks? For example, why did it log this as root login attempt? So you can actually see if you go into, actually you can right click here and you can the transcript. So we can see here, this is the FileZilla activity. Actually, this is a very good view of the packet capture that a start has. And you can see starting from 101, destination 101, and this was in clear text, user root and password was 136. So now it identified, how did it identify? If the username root is there in the network traffic, it will identify and alert us that somebody is going to try this. See this one also, brute force attempt response. Let's see again. You can also go to transcript, okay, admin and use it. And if you want to see more information, like for example, a Wireshark packet capture, you can actually open a packet capture and click OK over here. So this will also actually capture the packets for that particular event, what we actually saw over there. For example, here actually you can go to statistics and just see what are the endpoints that are connecting. Okay, so you can see what the two connections that are we having. And one of the things that I go is actually once I get these things, I'll actually go through the TCP stream. Whatever the same thing that you see over here. Now the most important part, right? All of these things will be having in a log aggregation platform like a SIEM. As a security analyst, you'll be like working in a SIEM where they have use cases or something like what you can see, certain type of rules. For example, all our snort rules, the alerts that are triggering, you'll be getting into one single area. So in Security Onion, you have something like that called Kibana. So Kibana is a graphical user interface which collects all of this information into one interface. You won't be having to go into Tcpdump. You don't have to go into IDS software. So this will be in the future also will be giving more focus on this one. Okay, so admin, and I'll just give my password. So one of the main idea is of this tool is when attack happens, where are the sources? For example, if attack happens, you can directly go into machine's FTP log. So because it has all the information that was collected. So this is actually the log it is showing. Or you can take a packet capture and analyze it via Shark. So it will have all the information that you know. But remember, you need to have idea of what type of source IPs and what type of protocols you are looking at. So if you come here, Kibana, I'll make this full screen because these two screens are like, I'll make this full screen mode. Okay, yep. Now we can see clearly. So once you go into Kibana, you'll be seeing a lot of activity. You'll be understanding this dashboard. So I'm going to keep it simple. I'm not going into Elasticsearch that much today. Some simple stuff. How can you find out? So you have your NIDS, HIDS, Elastic Alert, and Zeek notices. So for example, we are familiar with the IDS alerts. So if you want to see your IDS alerts, all will be coming here. Okay, you can see what did our NIDS actually attack. So we had a lot of scan activities and policy activity, net bias activity. Remember, when you are using Kibana or like a SIM, something like that, make sure you always have your time. For example, this shows all the things that is happening last 24 hours. So what I'm going to show you is you can actually reduce the time to get more relevant information. We know the attack went around like last 1 hour. So if you have a certain attack time period, make sure we are within that time period. So it will be easy to like see, because you have a lot of information to analyze. So make sure your time frame is strict and you can analyze within that. So that's one tip for me when you're analyzing data. So again, it doesn't look that much bad. So we have a lot of scanning activity, policy activity. These are policy violations. For example, FTP bad stuff and all the stuff. For example, scanning activity, if they are like not according to the company, you can get it. And you can see the net bias activity also. You can see the classifications. And do you see a lot of stuff? Okay. Do we have a FTP brute force activity? Yes, we have. Okay, so source IP is 56 to 101. Can we dig into this one? Filter out value. Yep, we can actually filter value. Let me remind myself my IPs. So this is our victim box, is attacking box. So yeah, and there's a second set of alerts also. Yep, a lot of stuff happening from 101. Okay, and a lot of things happening in 106 also. Again, another thing is you can go into Zeek hunting mode. Zeek hunting means like we had a service called Bro. This one actually records all the protocol activity. For example, we want to see the protocol information for FTP. So who has communicated more FTP? First go into connections. When you go into connections mode, actually it will show something like this. You have a lot of TCP connections. Okay, and if you want to see FTP activity, let me check, filter on the value FTP activity. Okay, 22 connections. You might be able to see who did where. So source IP addresses, destination IP address, connections, all the stuff. Respond to the number of bytes that you see, and these are the connections that were initiated with the time, which will give you more information on the attack. Okay, and yep, you can dig deeper, all the stuff. Okay, service keyword was FTP. You can actually clear this thing, and you can actually go to FTPO from here and actually search those things. FTP reply code within last 1 hour, 200. And yep, in threat hunting you might be able to like look at these connections who are making, just see if there's any suspicious protocols over here. I don't have a firewall, I go for my Ids. Yeah, actually connections, you might be checking these bad protocols, what are the connections that they made. And Elastic Alert, which is the same, actually has some alerts also generated. For example, IDS event, new IDS event. Okay, good. So whatever the things within the last 1 hour, 87 alerts, new connection logs found. Let me close that one. So next I would like to show you the final piece of puzzle. Like all of these same tools like come up with dashboards like these things, but the special thing about these things, you will be getting some type of a query language to extract the logs, actually query logs to ask your questions. So all of these things, remember this dashboard, and when you click on it, they will actually execute a query and get the results. When you're a threat hunter or an analyst, you must need to know this query language. For example, in Splunk, we use SPL language, and in Kibana also you have to use Elasticsearch queries to retrieve your data that you want. So I'll show you something very simple over here, and we'll have another long video on what type of data we can extract from this language. So to do your own queries, you can go to the Discover section. So when you go to the Discover section, you can see we have about 432,000 hits. And now when you come into this area, you'll see all the logs that were like from the most recent that you received. Now here actually it's like just think of it like all the logs in one database. In the database you have tables, and these are the fields that you can extract from the logs. The fields could be IP addresses, certain messages, port numbers. For example, if you can see here, okay, here the host name, which host actually reported, type of the log, this I think it's type of a file. So remember, this will be collection of all the logs and their fields. So in Kibana, you have a thing called Logstash, which has all the logs accumulated. And here actually you can see they give a small example. Status equals 200, extension equals PHP. So like that, you can give a field name and a value that you're searching for. Or otherwise, in our case, we are looking for FTP activity. And another important thing when you're looking at logs, you can see this these graphs show you the past 24 hour activity of the logs coming in. For example, I did some testing on this one before doing this video at 10 o'clock, and now you can see it's around 4 o'clock when I was doing the video, doing the log analytics. I get some activity. So it's very important to give the time that you are searching for log. For if an event happens, we need to analyze the logs at that time. So for example, it says last 24 hours. So if you're going for last hour or last week, you can actually can select the number of hours. So if I go to last 1 hour, so it will actually search for last 1 hour, and there is some activity again. And make sure I just select this area, because I can remember I was doing around like, yeah, it's 1430. So I'm going to select this area. In this area, what I'm going to search for is, look at this, I'm going to search for all the logs related to FTP. If they have something related to FTP, you can see it. Now, when you look at the logs, it's very easy to understand this thing. You can see here FTP brute force attempt response. Now, this is the signature of the NIDS actually. So because all the NIDS logs are fed into this, and you can actually go through the logs that we saw over here. How do you know it's the log? Let's go inside this. I expanded the log. You can see a lot of sticks happening here. So I want to show you something, and you can see event type is snort. So this log is the snort log, what we are saying here. You can actually get more information. What was the message that we are carrying? The message, you can see it is brute force attempt, and from 106 to 101. Let me see if I can get other logs. So these are looks like all having the snort signature. And okay, certainly our log type changes. Let's go inside that and see, and you can this event type. So this log is from the bro connections. As I told you, bro will monitor all traffic and log the activity. So whatever happened inside the packet, this is how bro records it. Now, there's a way to actually see this more easy if you have a tabular view. Okay, so sometimes you might need to put them in a table to in order to understand what happened. So the best thing is to put here, I'll keep the FTP as it is, and I'll add my fields. For example, I need for example my source IP. So I'll add the source IP like this. So you can see all the things that happened from the source IP. It's there. So 512, actually the last event happened, and I'm going to put the destination IP. So let me check. If I click on this, you can see I get two destination IPs and the activity. Add it. Okay, so I have source to destination, and I'm going to so another thing called the event type. It's a text field, you can see here. So we have bro logs and snort logs. Look at this. Okay, so we can see first snort logs and the bro connection logs are there. Okay, to make it more interesting, I'll put any message that was displayed over here. Okay, so you can see a clear. I can actually remove that is because that is giving too much information. Anything else that I can get into? Okay, shall I add the port? It's a random port actually. Category. So actually, you can make it more meaningful if you're creating a report or something like that. Priority protocol, signature, source port. Okay, source port. Let's see if there's anything that is there. Okay, so let me push here. Okay, so I'll put this source port near this one. So 106, which was our Windows machine. Yep. So Windows machine actually send back to our attacker. So all of these things you can see a lot of brolog activity. And if you can come here inside, you can see the additional info that you want to see. So this is how you actually read the logs. So you can see what happened, and you can get more information, and you can see a tabular way. So there were some connection attempts, and finally we got some alerts. Now, another thing is a successful login and successful attempts. You can actually get it through the FTP host logs, which actually recorded all the activity. So I have not forwarded the host logs into these same. So in that case, actually we could correlate, see the host logs also to see what are the successful and unsuccessful logins. But I showed you some methods. So Tcp dump and everything, it showed you the clear text view. And if you have the packet capture at this time, so you know something happened, and you can actually go to the IDS and collect the packet capture and get the information that you need. So there is more information that we should gather, but I hope you got an idea like what type of process that we go through to gather logs. So we see IDS alert, and it'll be actually triggered in your SIM. Then you see the connection logs and see what happened. And now you know, like you might need to go to for the investigation, you get the machine logs. But if the machine logs are forwarded here, it won't be. It will. You can check it over here whether somebody are logged in. You can get the usernames that were logged in because everything is in the logs. So all the breadcrumbs you have to collect and make up a story. So I hope you got an idea of like how to assemble the story. And so in the next versions, we'll improve the lab more, and we'll add more stuff into these things, get more logs in, and get to into more advanced attacks. So I hope you learned something from this, and thank you for watching. So if you like this video, please give a thumbs up, and if you want to see more content like this, please subscribe.